Scott, continuing on with organization and all the things involved with it, the next term is finance. What do you have to tell us about this?
It's a broad term that means many things to many people. In our context, I assume that you have an accounting department or an accounting practice that keeps track of dollars in and dollars out and has expense accounts and so on. So I'm assuming that and not speaking to that. I'm not an accountant or a CPA. But the business needs to manage the financial aspect of the group. And what are the purposes of finances, of money, of resources that God gives us? And we, in the United States, we live in a culture where most businesses, their charter, for real, is maximize return on shareholder investment. And so to manage finances for a good place organization, that needs to be not the top line. Something else is the top line. And being economically regenerative, another term I got from permaculture design course, to be economically regenerative is the aim. Why? So that you can accomplish the charter. So part of the charter is build up good places where you work. Part of good places is the ecology of the area. Part of good places is the communities that you interact with the physical communities near you. And in this day and age, there are interest-specific communities that are not geographically, centralized. So those communities, people who own transformers, they're not like all living in Akron, Ohio. They're all over the country. So that's a community.
Now you're talking about S.D. Meyer's work of fixing the transformers, the electrical units hanging in the poles out there that need revamping or replacement or whatnot.
Yeah, so forgive me, over familiarity, 47 years involved with that business. Our customers, we think of as a community because we all have connections, are scattered. We're not all in town together. But the purpose of the organization is to benefit the communities. That's one of them. To have the stewardship of physical creation around you that mirrors God's stewardship as depicted in Psalm 104. And you have to manage your finances so that you can do that well. Because one of the flip sides in our culture of organizations that are profit driven, there's organizations that are so mission driven, they're always out of money because all they want to do is fulfill their mission directly. And they don't spend the time to make sure that they are economically regenerative, so they not only stay in existence, but they can grow and provide their service to more people.
That's very interesting you said that, and I want to kind of park on this a little bit. So I think, if I understand this correctly, the thought behind this is, hey, recognize who you are and what you can do in the place God has put you in. And don't try to have your reach longer than what it should be. And in many, many parts of life, we understand this. We don't task a 5-year-old with a 25-year-old person's job physically. So there's a sense where you can think big and dream big, but to really do this right, you have to survive long term, which means that you should not be overextending financially. You should be thinking, how can this be sustainable with what we're doing right now? Whatever we're selling and providing is bringing in income, and with that, we quietly do what we can within that. Because so many people are going to say, well, that's not sacrificial, or that's not really trusting the divine call or God. If you just went and did something, God would provide. And where you do have some exceptional models for that, that's not enough to say that's the general rule. The general rule is be very careful with your finances. And
there's a humility involved in living on a budget.
That's right. There's a humility involved in the acquisition of knowledge, knowing that you're not going to learn it all, and you should embrace that. And living in a budget means you're not going to be able to do it all.
Right.
And you can embrace that.
You can have visions for that. I think all of us have visions that are beyond our capability to achieve. That doesn't mean you don't pursue them, but it also doesn't mean that you go into debt for them, trusting that God's going to make the money show up.
So there is a sense then where you're going to have to say no to people in your organization or people outside that are asking you to do more than you know you can right now. So learning how to say no graciously and with a theological reason is a powerful tool.
So our annual business planning, we experience that every year.
Mm-hmm.
We have more cool projects than we have people and financial resources to pursue. So we just got to pick the ones that are most core to our charter that we can execute now.
That, in other words, you can afford now.
Right.
Yes, and so there's also an embracing of the idea of, hey, we might not be as big as you want us to be. We might not be as involved with so many different things as you want us to be. But guess what? In 50 years, we're still going to be around because we know how to keep ourselves going with the money that we have.
Right. Yeah. An analogy people talk about, don't get past the tips of your ski. I mean, don't lean so far forward down the mountain, you're leaning forward and you tumble. Skiing, you're supposed to keep your center of gravity goes right down into the sole of your feet,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of your skis. That keeps you in balance and you can ski well. You might want to go faster, you might want to cut harder, but if you don't keep your center of gravity over your feet, you're going to go down.
Yeah, let me bring up a few more things.
Let me throw one more
sure.
in,
Go right ahead.
in case you don't ask this question. So in managing finances, the overall charter of a good place organization, the first area is to give people opportunity and encouragement to develop their full potential. So if you keep members of an organization in the dark about the finances of the organization, they don't have the opportunity to understand the financial impact of the work they do and to fully engage their mind in what they're doing, and also cuts them off from being able to come up with good ideas about how to make improvements. So part of managing finances is it's not giving every member of the organization the books for every detail, but educating each person on the financial impact of the work they do so that they know what is reasonable and not reasonable to expect. And as they exercise their God-given creativity and say, I think there's a better way to do that, they will have an understanding of the finance part. Whereas most businesses are like, I got that, the people at the top, the C-level people, that's their job. Your job is to do what we tell you to do. So it sort of goes against the head and hands and says everyone's a full human, and we want them to bring their full humanity, their full humanness to the work that they do, and they need to understand the financial aspects.
So one way to, I think, maybe oversimplify this or maybe even misunderstand it is to say, hey, we're a good place organization. We care about the community. We care about the land we're on, the environment. And we also give away 5% to, and then they pick a charity somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just somehow a reading program in the community or something. A food bank, it could be and then they're like, okay, now that we did that,
let's go make money.
Yeah, is that the heartbeat here? Is that, can you speak to that? Because I think that people want to give.
It's true, and there always are, there always will be things in the community that no one has figured out yet how to accomplish those in a way that provides living wage jobs for people. And so we support those through our volunteer efforts, either volunteer dollars or volunteer hours. And that's always appropriate. But the one document in the Utopia book titled The Nonprofit, Building Up a Good Place and the Nonprofit Dilemma demonstrates mathematically that we can't have the place we want to live in through donations and volunteer time. The work that we do to earn our living, that has to be the work that makes the world the place it's supposed to be. That's what our work is for. And if we say our work isn't for that, our work is for self-enrichment, and I'll give a few shekels away to somebody, to make the world a better place, that's not the formula.
Okay. So that really leads into my second question, which is a little tougher,
Uh-huh.
and see what you can do with it, okay? But there's a notion of you make what you can make. If it's legal and you earn it, it's actually okay in America to get rich and to have that as your goal, one of your goals perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that a lot of the Christian community would articulate it that way, but there does seem to be an accumulation of wealth that happens. And
Right.
what's going on here? Should a company allow, for example, its directors to get rich through the work, or is this something they need to figure out on their own? What would the utopia principles be here?
You know, I saw a really cool movie just last night. Samuel L. Jackson was a basketball coach, came out in 2004. I forget the name of it. He was a coach of an inner city basketball team with kids who were not good basketball players, were not good students. And he cited the statistics of the percent of kids from that high school who end up in prison, how many of them graduate high school, how many of them go to college. And so he was a coach, so the kids from that school could go to college. And he used basketball as his, I'll call it, means of grace to have that impact in their lives. There was a scene.
Was it Coach Carter?
Coach Carter.
Okay.
Yes. And it was based on a real guy and what he actually did. So there was a scene where, in the beginning of the movie, he shows up and he goes, "You can play on my team if you sign this contract. It says you're going to have a 3.2 grade average. On game days, you're going to wear a suit and a tie, and you will always sit in the front row of your class, and you will not cut class." And he couldn't get information from the teachers until midway through the season when they were undefeated. Best season the school had ever had. The community's all around them. And he finally got the reports from the teachers, and the kids were doing terrible academically. And a lot of them just weren't even going to classes. And he goes, "You guys violated the contract, you can't play. There's not enough of you." Well, he said, "It's not everybody, but we're a team. We make this as a team. Either the team is all on this or no one's on it. And so until everyone is on this contract, we don't play." They didn't have practices. They canceled some games. There's a community uproar. The school board actually voted to fire him. But his players, as he was going to clean the movie, as he was taking a box to go clean out his office and leave, the players were in the gym sitting at the desk doing their homework. And they said, "We're all going to get these grades, coach. And even though they've said that the gym is unlocked and we can practice and play games, we're not going to until we live up to this contract that we signed." So that sense of we're in this together is countercultural in the United States. In the United States, we think of, how am I doing? And if I'm doing really well and someone else is not doing very well, it's not my problem. And Scripture is very clear. If your neighbor is not doing very well, it is your problem. It is. I don't know what all the implications of that are, but we need to address them very seriously. And to just blithely say, I can get as rich as I want and donate money to food banks so people don't starve to death. One of the things we say a lot is that work is a means of grace. God describes an economy for Israel. And I personally think that economy flows to the church, that we are supposed to live that economy. And God says everyone's supposed to have a job that meets their needs. Why? Well, A, so they can meet their needs, but B, the real reason is God created work in the Garden of Eden very early on as a tool that God uses to make us what we're supposed to be. And depriving somebody of that work, would you tell somebody you're not allowed to read the Bible for the rest of your life? You can't go to church for the rest of your life. But if we would like help somebody learn how to read, we would get them a Bible if they didn't have one. Well, having a job is that same category. And if somebody doesn't have a job, as much as you want somebody to have a Bible who doesn't, you should want them to have a job just as much.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott.